Welcome back, everybody, to Rob's MetalWorks. Tonight is a special evening as we are about to embark on an unprecedented evening. It brings me great pleasure to welcome a musician from right here in San Antonio who's impacted the entire nation. I have with me the man, the musician, the producer, the mastermind, Mr. Bryan Scott. Sir, welcome to Rob's MetalWorks. It is my pleasure and honor to have you here.
Violate, such a simple plan. Turn me on, it's the dead man, yeah!
I'm so happy because, you know, you are definitely someone in San Antonio who really set the bar and standard for many musicians in this town. And to have you as part of our program now after all these years and to kind of look back, I think, objectively to the success that you had with the Union Underground, and now with all the great things that lie ahead in 2016, it's definitely an opportune time to have you on our show. Now, first of all, you know, before we jump into the band, I want to talk about you, man, because obviously you are to me, a special talent, you know, one of a kind. When did you realize that you wanted to pursue music and be a musician?
You know, it was the typical right around the 12 years old, you know, I got my first guitar, and from there, I mean, that was it. You know, I knew when I first heard, of course, you know, I'm a big, I'm gonna let my 80s out right now. Like, I'm a huge Crew fan, and like that, when I bought that Shout at the Devil, and like I opened that up and I thought, that's ridiculous, like I have to do that. Like that record truly like changed everything for me, you know. That's the moment that I really discovered that I have to do this. It was that thing, you know, and it was that simple. I mean, from then on, you know, guitar lessons and, you know, endless amounts of hours just isolated playing guitar.
Obviously, you know, in the early beginnings, you had to have gotten involved musically, locally. When you first started playing out, you know, or letting people know, hey, I'm a musician, I play guitar, I'm in a band. Who was out at that time that you kind of felt, hey, you know, I dig what you're doing too locally here in San Antonio?
The guys that were influencing us at the time, because we're still in high school, were like Dangerous Toys. It was kind of that moment where you saw the first time that like guys from your neighborhood could make it happen. And so that was very inspiring for all of us. Those guys like really inspired us. That sticks out for me. You know, their first record was just smoking, and like, wow, man, we can go like straight from the garage to number 2 most requested on MTV. Like these guys, like, so like, okay, let's formulate a plan.
Let's do it. So let's talk about the formation of Union Underground. How did that happen?
Me and a buddy of mine from high school at the time kind of, you know, created this whole idea about just, you know, the concept behind it, and just what we wanted this whole thing to sound like, and we kind of had a similar taste and just music in general.
What was the vision? I mean, obviously, I think one of the things that made Union Underground so fabulous was that you guys weren't doing what other people were doing in San Antonio. I mean, obviously, you know, bringing in some, you know, hard rock, but, you know, also with some technology in there, and edgy, and the things that you were doing with your voice was so unique. I mean, talk a little bit about that vision.
It was never something that was thought out, or, you know, we just, and you know, what I love about that first record is it's very diverse, you know. To this day, I love listening to that record, like from beginning to end. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those records I can really listen to it, try to be unbiased, of course, as a fan, and listen to it from back to front. There was never like a moment where you thought, well, let's try and sound like this or try and sound like that. It's like you just put things together until you just throw things against the wall, and then when they work, they work.
That record, even, you know, so many years later, people can still just put it on and you just start rocking your head to it, man. It's one of those records, and all the songs are good on that record. There's no throwaways on An Education in Rebellion.
And you never put songs on a record knowing like, oh, this is just a throwaway. But you know, obviously there's always better songs than others, and you always know it at that moment, man. Like when you're working on a song, kind of have those moments where you know, man, this is gonna be a single for sure.
I distinctly remember people contacting me back at that time, you know, in the early 2000s. And I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it was Terry from Low Key who called me and he says, dude, come to Sneakers tonight. There's this band called the Union Underground playing, and you gotta check them out. And, you know, obviously at that time in San Antonio, there was already a huge buzz going on about the band, and this following started to snowball into something grand. How did you kind of initially feel about that? Because did you think, you know, we're on to something special, or did you just kind of feel, you know, hey, you know, we're part of the scene and we'll see what happens?
You always know when something feels right.
Yeah.
And you know that there's a swell happening, and you know, sometimes, you know, you just dig your head in the sand and you just work your ass off, and you try not to pay too much attention to what's going on around you. Just keep working, you know. But you know, it was a special feeling with that, you know, because you knew, you know, I just knew something was gonna blow with that thing, because I refused to let it be otherwise.
And eventually it did, of course, because you guys got signed to an imprint off Columbia Records, okay, that picked the band up. And at that time, you know, and this was kind of, you know, when the internet was not as significant as it is today, but to get signed to a major label like that, to Columbia Records, that was huge. Very, very huge. And that was unprecedented in San Antonio. No band had kind of really ever done that. A rock band, you know, really come from obscurity on a local level, you know, to a major label deal, or not an independent label, a major label deal. So tell us, how did the deal happen? How did you guys get picked up?
There's several things, you know, that's never an easy answer, because there's always, you know, a volume of things that has to happen before something that big goes down. You know, we hooked up with a management company at the time, and this is the thing, like, it only takes, with all the people involved, it only takes that one person, man, that one person that really believes in it, that can do something about it. We did 1 million showcases for many different labels, and bigger labels too. Mm-hmm. And you know, they were all like, we just don't really get it, you know. So you just have to commit to what it is you believe in, obviously, and you just keep going forward, because you know, it can be disheartening, you know, to get turned down by something you're very passionate about. And we finally came to Columbia, who you know, they were just super passionate, man. You know, we got it done pretty quickly. Like, once we did maybe 2 shows for those guys, and it was done.
Did you re-record An Education in Rebellion, or was the record already recorded?
About 80% of that record was done. We had done ourselves, we produced, you know, in our own studio, and I had already mixed it all and blah, blah, blah. But we had someone remix all this stuff later. But all this stuff was recorded, aside for about 4 songs. But the majority of that record was done, you know. And it was nice to just take the tracks we had done, and actually there were several people involved in that. Don Gilmore and Orwick Wilde worked on that record as well, on a couple of songs. So, you know, I did some co-producing with those guys on a couple of tracks, and which is it's always kind of a weird experience for me, because I guess I can be a bit of a control freak in the studio, and just with projects in general, like, you know, you're just so meticulous and so adamant about it being a result of your vision, that it's hard to bring other people in, you know. That was hard for me, you know, but I think the results were great.
You know, the fact that you've kind of become a producer extraordinaire, you know, you're a very talented producer as well, and we'll talk about that. Did you, obviously, you know, as a young man at that time, were you pulling things from these people? Were you absorbing as much as you could from them? I
was just listening to every moment that these guys were making, and just making mental notes, man, you know. And I'm such a huge fan of the way records sound, and just production and everything, that, you know, I just became obsessed with the whole idea, you know.
Getting the record deal is kind of like making it to first base, maybe to second base, you know. That's a big deal, okay? But the Union Underground, not only, after getting the deal and the record was finally released, the official record, also was widely accepted across the country. When I introduced you tonight, I said an artist who's impacted the country. I mean, people know your music all around the world. So that to me was the, not the second base hit. That's the home run right there. How gratifying was it for you to get that national acceptance, not just from peeps here and family here and friends here, but people who know nothing about you, know nothing about the band, who are just strictly going off, these are kick-ass jams.
How fast it kind of happened can be a little bit of a head trip. You try to block out the noise, you know what I mean? You're just doing your thing every day, and you start to realize, like, wow, how much it's building, and it just 6 months later, all of a sudden everything has just changed so much, like, blah, 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 and it's like, this whole thing's on a totally different level, but you don't tend to realize it until you're kind of off the road or taking a break or at home for a bit, and then you start to realize how much it's changed, because you're just in work mode.
Right.
You're just in work mode when you're out there, so that's always fun to kind of, have some moments where you pat yourself on the back a little bit and like, fuck, I can finally just relax a bit.
Yeah.
And kind of enjoy some of the accolades. So yeah, it was great.
You were playing in front of massive crowds. You did Ozzfest 2001. What was that like to kind of be, not only, out there in front of people, but also kind of, you were telling me off camera, hey Rob, I remember when we, did, songs with Drowning Pool and Dave Williams and stuff like that. So also to be recognized by peers in the music industry who are also just as successful. I mean, any highlights when you think about that time? What are your fondest memories?
Ozzfest was really like kind of a big band camp for everyone. You know what I mean? And I know everyone says that about those kind of festival things, and it's very true.
Yeah.
It's just, everyone's just working hard, man, and doing their thing every day, and like trying to hang out as much as you can, and just kind of share memories and thoughts from the stage that day, and just, everyone's super cool. And I thought, the year that we did that was a really cool lineup, man. That's when like, Linkin Park and Disturbed and these guys were just breaking, and Drowning Pool and Union Underground, and so that was a really cool time in music. That I kind of miss a bit, just that kind of genre of stuff, and just there was a really cool atmosphere going on, during that time. Like just those early 2000s were just really, really cool. And so, believe me, there's not one memory. There's probably several that would be inappropriate.
Yeah. Save those for the book, Brian. You wrapped up Ozzfest in 2001, and then the following year, you guys released a live CD. Okay, a live CD with some kind of various live performances from different shows. I think that's always cool because I like the, I want to hear the best live performances. But also that year the band disbanded, and really kind of despite the initial success, I think there was a lot of people out there who were kind of, pounding their heads against the wall and wondering why did the band break up, or why did this end? And obviously here in San Antonio, as kind of being the shining stars of San Antonio, there was a lot of people in this town who wondered why. What would you say was the most significant reason that the Union Underground decided to disband in 2002?
This is exactly why I decided to relaunch it. Simply because I'm not motivated by, I don't care how many people are saying we need to continue this because we're all making money, right, or we need to continue this because you have a contract that needs to be fulfilled, or whatever. I truly only do things if I feel that they're right for me, and if I feel it at the time. I felt at the time very unhappy about the music we were making on our second record. I wasn't pleased with the process, and I didn't feel that it would represent the band properly. I mean, the stuff we were working on just didn't sound like Union Underground.
Right.
Because, the process had been contaminated a bit. There was some good stuff happening, but I truly just emotionally and mentally didn't want to do it anymore. And it's that simple. There's not some, everyone always asks over the years, like, is there some big dramatic incident or something? There wasn't some incident or something. It's just that simple.
Well, I will, personally applaud you for that, because I think you and I both know people who would have done the opposite and sacrificed their personal happiness for money or fame or for anything else. So, man, that goes to the heart of who you are as a human being. And I think at the beginning of it all, if you're a happy human being, then you're going to produce good music.
Yeah, and I just, even with the relaunch of Union, I've been very clear with, the other guys involved that this is where I'm at in my life, and I feel the same way. Like, I can't go down a big emotional roller coaster with you again, Right. It either has to feel right, and I'll do it, or not. It was a big decision for me to just blow off working on that record. It was just that's how I felt.
Was that the reason that after the breakup you went to live in Vegas? I mean, I know people know that you started residing in Las Vegas after kind of the breakup, and did not come back to San Antonio. Why did you make that choice?
I only lived out there for about a year, and it was just an opportunity to just get away from hometown and just the constant questions. You know what I mean? I wanted to get into a new environment.
Yeah.
And that in Las Vegas is where I initially launched the Cult to Follow project. So I just wanted to get out of that whole Union headspace.
Well, I was one of the people who was happy to see the prodigal son return, man. Why did you decide to move back then?
I was auditioning for the Cult to Follow project. I was doing from Las Vegas, but however the people that seemed the most fitting were all from San Antonio.
Yeah.
So, I was out there auditioning people for that project, and I realized that the guys that are working best for this thing are all from San Antonio.
Yeah.
So I was having them come to Vegas, and I was coming to San Antonio, and it just turned into a bit of a nightmare, like kind of coming back and forth. So
Sure.
It's like, well, I'm just going to move back, and that's when I kind of launched that thing, because all the guys in that band were all from San Antonio.
Yeah.
Not just Texas surrounding, like San Antonio particularly. So, well, why am I here in Vegas? I'll just get out of here.
You're really, truly a producer. So do you like producing bands? Is that something that you want to continue to do?
It's always been a passion of mine, for sure, man. I've kind of spread myself a little thin over the last 2 or 3 years, which a lot of times producing other artists, when I commit to a full album project, can really kind of hinder some of my personal commitments to my own art, But I'm passionate about those things too, and the people that I produce, and they just become babies of mine as well.
Sure.
that I want to see to fruition, And
Well, every piece that you do is a representation of you and your work.
yeah, I mean, if your name's on it, you got to work at it.
Slowly but surely, we've seen you come out of the woodwork. I saw that you did that acoustic show at the end of 2014. And, oh, God, I kicked myself for weeks for not being able to be there, because obviously, you don't see, Bryan Scott come out, play solo, cut, and dry and stripped down with a microphone and a guitar, coming out there and playing songs.
I really never have, I guess people that know you might think otherwise, but I really didn't have like a master plan. It just, when things feel right, I'll do them, and it's just kind of that simple. So I kind of I did that acoustic thing because of like it was a charity event. Oh, cool, and people haven't seen me in a while, and it was a very different environment for me to be in, because usually it's madness and production and all that stuff that I love.
Yeah.
I really wanted to bring some pyro into that acoustic show.
You do things grand. I know that.
But yeah, man, and just in the last about about a year and a half, I've just been really writing a lot and kind of slowly getting out of producing and you know, focusing my efforts elsewhere. And a lot of good things have come from it. So I got really inspired in the last years.
You know, people on social media have heard mumblings about, you know, your return on a variety of fronts, on a grand return, not, you know, doing acoustic shows, but coming out with new music, rock music. So let's first talk about the Union Underground. You are, as you mentioned previously, resurrecting the band, and so I have a few questions on that front. First of all, do you have a lineup for the new version of Union Underground?
You might be able to tell by my smirk that that I can't. No, I can't totally reveal that yet.
Okay.
Now, Josh Mimlo, the original Union drummer, will be in the band.
Cool.
You know, which is great. And the other two slots are still in the making. You know, and I can't really say yet.
Shit, remember when you made the announcement, I was getting messages all the time. And, you know, I forwarded some of those messages to you. People were asking me, Rob, you know, who's playing guitar? Who's playing bass for the band? You know, is he accepting auditions? You know, who can I contact if I want to be, you know, considered for a spot on the band? So obviously, you know, working with Bryan Scott in the new underground band is something that's kind of prestigious and sought after. So I'm sure that you are able to pick and choose the right people to work for. So with that being said, what kind of people were you looking for?
Man, there's a lot of really talented guys out there. And you know, I'm not gonna do an open audition thing, because that's a big can of worms that I just don't want to deal with. But and I'm kind of beyond that point, to be honest. But as far as selection, but I once again can't say yet.
Well, okay, so you are the mastermind, you know, really. I mean, you don't need a whole solid lineup to be writing music and creating music, and we know that. And I think I've read somewhere that you plan to release new Union Underground music this summer in 2016. Is that true?
Yes.
And you plan to release an EP or LP, or what's the plan there?
It'll probably realistically be a 4-song EP. Just kind of relaunch the vibe, and you know, I just want to do an EP and see just how I feel about it once again. If I'm feeling good about it, then you know, we'll do a full record at some point. And but you know, these days, man, truly full records are almost becoming obsolete. You know, those plans are still a little premature, because it'll definitely be a 4-song, and we'll hit the road for a bit, maybe just a couple of months. So it's just timing and scheduling and figuring it all out. You know, it's this year's going to be kind of ridiculous, but I like that.
Would it be your goal to kind of secure or try to secure some type of, you know, deal, or is it in the day and age that we live in now, where it's far more realistic and feasible for bands to still be able to reach a worldwide audience without that support, to kind of do it yourself?
Yeah, there's really two ways to go about it. I like the environment that we're in, even though, you know, it's a struggle, man, for musicians to make a living. Again, it's a little early. It's a bit early. You know, there's a few things that are you know, in the works. All right. But you know, stuff's kind of premature.
I was telling you before we started, many of your fans from all over the country have been messaging me and emailing me about tonight's conversation. Anything you want to share with them out there who still continue to love you and support you and your music after all these years?
Well, of course, you know, I really appreciate the passion and the loyalty that everyone has to, you know, especially Union Underground, because it's, you know, it's kind of a legacy thing. Mm-hmm. And to have that much support still is really killer to me. It's amazing, and I appreciate it. I mean, it's my whole life. It's the only thing I do. Anyone that knows me, it's just my only thing.
And you do it
to a fault. you know, the missus would say to a fault, this is all you ever think about and talk about. And, you know, you're like a one-track mind, you know, but it's just who I am, you know.
And you do it so well, sir. It's been my privilege and honor to talk to you about the Union Underground. Our conversations will continue.